Welcome to Celestial Zodiac. In this video we're exploring Chiron in relationships and why certain connections can feel so intense, emotional, or even painful in ways that don't always make sense at first. Chiron represents a core sensitivity in your chart, and when it's activated in relationships, it often shows up through the people who seem to trigger something deeper within you. These are the connections that feel different from the beginning. There may be a sense of familiarity, emotional intensity, or even a feeling that the relationship is important in some way even early on. One of the most noticeable ways Chiron shows up in relationships is through emotional triggers. You may find that certain people bring out reactions that feel stronger than the situation itself. For example, a small misunderstanding may feel like rejection, distance may feel like abandonment, or a difference in communication style may create deeper insecurity. These reactions are not random. They are connected to patterns that already exist within you, which is why they can feel so immediate and difficult to control. The other person is not necessarily causing the wound, but they are activating something that is already there. This is why similar themes can show up across different relationships, even when the people involved are very different. Chiron activation becomes even more noticeable in intimacy. As relationships deepen, emotional boundaries naturally lower, and this creates space for vulnerability to come to the surface. This can bring up fears around trust, rejection, abandonment, or self-worth in a way that feels very personal. You may feel more exposed, more reactive, or more sensitive than you expect. In some cases, this can create a push and pull dynamic, where part of you wants closeness while another part feels the need to protect itself. This can lead to patterns such as withdrawing, becoming defensive, overanalyzing, or seeking reassurance in ways that don't fully resolve the underlying feeling. Not all Chiron connections are the same. Some relationships support healing while others reinforce the wound. Healing dynamics often involve a level of awareness, whether from one person or both. In these relationships, even though the connection may feel intense, there is space for communication, understanding, and growth. The other person may not be perfect, but the dynamic allows you to recognize your patterns and respond differently over time. These relationships can feel challenging, but they also feel constructive. They create an environment where vulnerability is met with some level of support, which allows healing to unfold gradually. Rewounding dynamics feel different. These relationships may still feel strong or even magnetic, but they tend to repeat the same emotional patterns without resolution. You may feel misunderstood, dismissed, or stuck in cycles that don't seem to improve over time. These dynamics often trigger defensiveness, insecurity, or emotional exhaustion. There may be moments of connection, but they are often followed by the same underlying issues resurfacing again and again. This repetition is often what makes these relationships difficult to leave, because the emotional pattern feels unfinished. This is where the idea of fated connections comes in. Chiron contacts in synastry, especially strong aspects like conjunctions, squares, or oppositions, can create a sense that the relationship is meaningful or destined in some way. You may feel drawn to the person without fully understanding why, or feel like the connection has a deeper purpose. However, fated does not always mean healthy or long-lasting. Some connections are meant to bring awareness rather than stability. They highlight something that needs to be understood, even if the relationship itself is not meant to continue. Chiron doesn't determine compatibility on its own, but it plays a powerful role in how relationships feel emotionally. Two people can be very compatible on the surface and still trigger each other deeply if Chiron is involved. At the same time, more challenging matches can sometimes create opportunities for growth and healing. Chiron shows where emotional sensitivity is activated, which is why some relationships feel more intense, more meaningful, or harder to move on from than others. For example, someone with a Libra sun and someone with a Gemini sun may naturally get along well. They communicate easily, understand each other, and the connection feels light and natural. But if one person has Chiron in Cancer and the other person has their moon in Cancer, that emotional expression can activate something much deeper. The Cancer moon may bring out vulnerability, sensitivity, or emotional needs that touch directly on the Chiron wound. As a result, the person with Chiron in Cancer may feel more exposed, more reactive, or more easily hurt, even in a relationship that is otherwise compatible. This is where Chiron adds emotional depth that goes beyond basic compatibility. In other cases, a relationship that seems challenging on the surface can actually support healing over time. For example, someone with an Aries sun and someone with a Cancer sun may have very different approaches to life and emotions. Aries tends to be direct and action-oriented, while Cancer is more sensitive and protective. But if the Aries individual has Chiron in Aries and the Cancer individual has Mars in Aries, this can create a dynamic where the Cancer partner naturally expresses the confidence and assertiveness that the Aries partner struggles with internally. At first, this may feel uncomfortable or even triggering as it brings attention to areas of insecurity. However, over time, it can also create an opportunity for growth, helping the Aries individual develop a stronger sense of confidence and self-trust. In this way, a more difficult match can still have a meaningful and healing effect. Over time, the goal with Chiron in relationships is not to avoid emotional triggers completely, but to become more aware of them. As you begin to recognize these patterns, you gain more control over how you respond. Instead of reacting automatically, you can pause, reflect, and choose a different approach. This is where healing begins to take shape in a more conscious way. The same types of situations may still arise, but your relationship to them starts to change. As you continue to grow, you may also notice a shift in the types of relationships you attract and choose. Instead of being drawn to dynamics that reinforce the wound, you begin to gravitate toward connections that support growth, stability, and mutual understanding. This doesn't mean relationships become perfect, but it does mean they become more aligned with who you are becoming rather than who you were when the pattern first formed. Chiron in relationships ultimately shows us that connection can be both challenging and transformative. The people who trigger us the most are often the ones who reveal the most about ourselves. And while not every connection is meant to last, each one can offer insight that helps you move forward with greater awareness, clarity, and emotional strength. Thank you for watching Celestial Zodiac. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you found this video about Chiron helpful.